everybody, welcome back to another video. My name is Lucy and today's video is going to be all about doing work while doing a part-time PhD, how to manage your workload while doing a PhD, whether you work or not, because I was getting a lot of questions about this in my Instagram, so actually I'm just going to be answering your guys' questions. Let's get on with the video. Okay, so the first question is asking me all about how I find the work-life balance while doing a PhD. Now, I think the thing to bear in mind here is I have 2 part-time jobs and I do a full-time PhD. That's not the situation for everybody. Some people will do 1 part-time job, some people won't do any part-time jobs, some people will do part-time PhDs with part-time jobs. For me personally, the way I have to do the work-life balance is I set aside days of the week when it's part-time job days and then when it's PhD days. So typically on Monday I do the majority of the work for one of my part-time jobs, and then on Saturday I do the majority of the work for my other part-time jobs, which means Tuesday through till Friday is PhD time. I tend to take Wednesday off, I'm not gonna lie, and then on Sunday I take it off. So that's kind of how I split it up. I also have a rule where I don't do any work in the morning unless I absolutely have to, because I'm a night owl, so I don't like working in the morning, but it does mean that sometimes then I'll work till like 7 p.m, 8 p.m. in the evening. So that tends to be how I find the work-life balance. I've had to segregate it into different days for different activities because otherwise it was all blending together and I found I was working too much. I do also like to take Wednesday and Sunday off completely, so I don't do any work on those days and I don't feel guilty about doing any work because I still need to have fun, I still need to have a social life, see my friends, and do stuff that isn't work, because otherwise I would go insane. The reason I take Wednesdays and Sundays off is because I like having that midweek break, and often I find my brain needs to switch from sort of work to PhD work, and then I have to work Saturdays for various reasons, so it makes sense then to have a midweek day off. So that is how I find the work-life balance. I would say it's very easy as a PhD student to slip into the habit of working all the time, and it's something I actually had to actively stop myself from doing because, as I said, it is very easy to do and I don't think it's healthy. Okay, the second question is related to that. It's basically asking how much of a workload do PhD students have, especially compared to undergrad or masters. What I would say is it depends how you approached your undergrad. If you, and bear in mind again, I'm a humanities student, I'm doing English literature, if you approach your undergrad by kind of doing the bare minimum and just doing essays, which, no shade, I did that, I would just work like crazy when it came to my essays and then the rest of the time maybe didn't work as hard as I should. I would say in that respect a PhD is more like a long-term project that you're managing yourself. So if you take time off or if you slack a bit at the start, that's fine, you can do that, but you're probably going to have to make that time back up towards the end or when you have a deadline, or you're not going to finish the PhD. So they say doing a PhD is like a full-time job. I obviously haven't got the time to do that, like I already have 2 part-time jobs. I would say the workload is a lot, but it's a self-structured workload. You pick the workload yourself, you need to decide how much you can feasibly get done, what are your goals, what are your targets for that week, that month, even that day, whatever you need to break it down into, and then just achieve that. And remember, it's a marathon, not a sprint. So I would say on average I do about 5 to 6 hours of PhD work on the days I do PhD work. Bear in mind, I've just told you I don't do PhD work every day, so that gives you an idea of how much I do. Sometimes it'll be more, sometimes it'll be less, it depends on my mood, it depends on what I'm doing, how into it I get, if I get into a flow or if it's just not happening today. But I'd say that gives you a rough idea of how much I do on the days I do PhD work. Okay, so the next question I have is, I think it's related to the part-time jobs because it's basically saying how do I do the PhD if I don't get a scholarship, if I don't get a studentship, if I don't get funding, basically. And obviously I'm someone who is doing a PhD without funding. I've discussed that in another video, how I finance my unfunded PhD. It is definitely doable. 100% it is doable. Is there additional challenges you will face being unfunded? Yes, because you're probably going to have to work. You're probably not going to be able to dedicate your sole time to a PhD like a funded person would. And the reality is you're not necessarily going to have as much time and energy to dedicate to your PhD as you would maybe like, or as maybe you feel like you should. but it is 100% doable. If you have the passion, if you have the drive for your subject, you can definitely do a PhD. You don't have to be funded to do a PhD. You then just have to be willing to work for it. So like, I saved up before I started the PhD, I have 2 part-time jobs, I also have savings that I've invested, which you can, again, it's in my video, I'll link it up here. I realise that's not the case for everybody. Some people won't be in a position where they could have saved beforehand, or they won't have inherited money like I did from dead grandparents, a bit morbid, that let me then invest it, etc. But I know other friends who don't have that situation, you know, all their grandparents are still alive, and they are still making it work because of part-time jobs, because of little pots of money here and there. It is 100% doable, but you have to have that passion, and you have to realise it's going to be hard. It's not easy. I think the other thing is I have friends who are doing a part-time PhD and then working full-time. So there's 100 different ways that you can make it work as long as you've got that drive, but I also completely understand it is going to be harder because I'm doing it. Like, you can't dedicate 100% of your energy to one thing. Instead, I'm split in 3 different directions. Some days I wake up and my mind is just like, we've had enough now, we need a break, we're done. 100% doable. I would never let it put you off, but go in being realistic. Also go into the fact that this is going to be 3-4 years of your life at least, and you need to work out whether that's something you're willing to maybe give up the little luxuries for that period of time. Like, you might not be able to go on that holiday, you might not be able to buy that nice designer handbag, you might not be able to do all the fun things you want to do, because if you're working and doing a full-time PhD, you're not necessarily going to have the energy, the time, or the money. So I feel like that was a bit of a grim answer, but my long and short of it is, it's 100% possible, I'm doing it, but go in with your eyes wide open. The other thing I would say is my supervisors have always been very understanding about the fact that I'm unfunded, and very understanding about the fact that maybe at points I won't be able to dedicate as much time as I want to, or I might have to go part-time, etc. I haven't had to do any of that yet, but make sure you get yourself a supervisor who is understanding and willing to have that discussion with you, because not all of them will be. So this person actually sent me 4 questions in one. I'm just going to answer the first 2, and then I'll reply to the other ones in the messages, because the first 2 are the ones that are related to this question. So the first one is kind of the main one I'm going to be answering, which is what part-time job opportunities are available while doing a PhD. Now, the thing I will say about the University of Birmingham is they are really good about helping students find work if that's what a student wants to do. They have a whole team set aside for it for WorkLink. I found one of my part-time jobs through that. They do also have a lot of opportunities there. However, I would also say there are a lot of opportunities just in general in Birmingham. It's a very big city. Obviously, it's a bit different now, given the current lockdown pandemic situation, but normally there are a lot of jobs around. You do have to be proactive. You're not necessarily going to find one straight away. I think it took me a month to find my part-time job, and then one of my part-time jobs I had from before. There are definitely part-time job opportunities through WorkLink, through the university itself, and then also just through Birmingham because it's a huge city. Obviously, if you have experience, that will help you. Like, I have retail experience, so therefore I find it easier to get retail jobs than someone who doesn't have retail experience. But we all have to start somewhere. I think if you want a part-time job and that's something you prioritise, especially when you first arrive, you'll be able to find one in Birmingham. The second question this person has asked is, can I do a part-time PhD? Yes, you can 100% do a part-time PhD. As I've said before, I have friends who are doing it. It's a discussion I've had with my supervisors at times when my work has got too busy. That is also the other thing I'd mention. You can start full-time and then go back to part-time, then go up to full-time. It's quite a fluid thing, as long as you have that discussion with your supervisor, as long as there's reasonings behind it and you're not just doing it because you want to do it. You know, you want a holiday, so like, oh, I'll go part-time for the summer and then I'll go back full-time in the winter. But as long as there's an actual reason behind it, there's no kind of barriers to stopping you from shifting down to part-time or going back up to full-time, depending if your situation changes. Final question. This question came from someone who's doing a long distance PhD and basically asking, is there like an online community? Is there a way I can get involved with the university despite being long distance? And I think this links into that whole work-life balance thing, part-time jobs thing, because obviously part of the work-life balance is meeting other PhD students and having people you can relate to and not feeling so alone in this journey. And I think I can understand how that would be hard for long distance people, because it can, I imagine, be a bit more isolating. I think that's something we're all feeling at the moment with the pandemic, where we've all kind of been acting like long distance people. But I think actually there are so many online resources you can get involved in. The Guild, I know, is doing a lot of things, particularly starting with Freshers Week. They're going to have a lot of events on. Welcome Week is still happening, so that's absolutely something you should go to, because it's going to be a mix of digital and socially distanced events. So if you can go to the digital events, I'd highly recommend it. The other thing I'd say as a PhD student is I've noticed such a outpouring of conferences and online events happening, and webinars and seminars happening to get involved with and to make you still feel like you're part of an academic community. And even if you're like me and a bit shy and don't necessarily want to contribute to those discussions quite yet, it's still good to watch them. It's still good to kind of hear what other people are researching in your area. A place I found that's really good for this is Twitter, actually. If you join Twitter, I hated Twitter before I did a PhD. I still don't love Twitter, I'm not gonna lie, but I'm on Twitter now, and it is a good place for finding out about conferences and online talks and just connecting with other academics in your field. So that'd be my number one tip. Get a Twitter, get talking to people in your field, go to conferences. Number two tip is read the University of Birmingham emails. I know some of them are super long, trust me, I know. I don't even read all of them. But there is sometimes events in there and activities that happen in a way to get involved. There's obviously Shut Up and Work, which is now completely online. So that's definitely something as a long distance learner you can get involved with, and you can work alongside other people and set yourself goals. I'm not someone who typically likes to get involved with stuff. I'm not gonna lie to you, it's not my natural state, but you really do get out what you put in. And something I've realised during the pandemic is I've had to be a bit more proactive, a bit more willing to put myself out there to get involved with things. There is a community there to tap into, a community that has become increasingly digital because it's had to become digital, and take advantage of that as a long distance learner. You know, I'm a part of a network, the Midlands Network for Popular Culture, I'll link it down below, and we're already saying about the fact that we should continue the online events even after this whole crazy period of time is over, because A, they're more accessible, and B, they're cheaper. So it's like, if we can continue putting on online events, why would we not keep doing that? So we're thinking of making that a regular monthly thing, even after we don't have to make it a monthly thing, if that makes sense. So get involved and maybe suggest that. If you're part of a group, be like, hey, wouldn't it be great if we continued this after the lockdown ends, because then people from all over the world can join, even like long distance learners. I will link anything down below that I think might help people, any Facebook groups, things like that. But yes, Twitter, read the emails, and if you get involved with something, suggest ideas. Tell them, hey, I'm a long distance learner, I can't easily get to campus even when it's open. Wouldn't it be great if we continued this when the campus is open, just to help long distance learners feel a sense of community? Yeah, that's the video. So I hope this was helpful. I hope it answered some of your questions about work-life balance, about working while doing a PhD, etc. If you sent me a question afterwards, I'll reply to you on Instagram. I'll leave a link to my Instagram here. Do feel free to go there and ask me any questions about PhD life. I'm always happy to answer them. And I'll see you next Sunday. Bye!